Welcome, Wanderer, to one of the easiest starters to Keepers of the Flame, for beginners and veterans alike. You never played Path of Exile before? No problem, I got you covered. We are talking about the Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder. Zoom over the map, throw your flasks at the enemies, and simply see them vanish. My favorite part about leveling the build, you don't need a weapon, because Poisonous Concoction is an unarmed skill, and the biggest damage boost comes from your life flask and how much life it actually recovers. Now, before we go deeper into this, there will also be a path of building with intensive notes that explain the whole leveling process step by step plus early endgame, and we need to talk about the nerf to Poisonous Concoction in the up and coming league, because it's not actually a nerf. In 3.27, Poisonous Concoction goes down from 30 damage in the beginning to 22, 8 damage less. And the high-end damage would be 1073, and that is now 806. However, the Poisonous Concoction gets added chaos damage equal to your flask recovery amount, and that used to be 11% at max. Currently, I'm sitting at level 16 with a 10% max on a 3,432 recovery, which means we would get another 343 added chaos damage to our throw. In the new league, this is updated to 4 to 16%, which means in the current scenario we would sit at 3,432 times 0.15 instead of 0.10, and we get 514 damage bonus, 160 more, and the increase of the flask recovery amount pretty much covers the loss of damage that the Poisonous Concoction got. And the same goes for the Poisonous Concoction of Bouncing, that also received a top-end damage nerf. However, with the buff to the flask recovery amount, it's more or less the same. And that's not even accounting for the new grafts that we're going to get with Keepers of the Flame that are being added to your shoulders. I mean, this one gives you 19% increased cold damage, so I reckon I'll be easy to find something that does 20% increased chaos damage for all the poison we're spreading. This alone is going to add bonus damage to what we're doing. Who cares if we have 8 damage less, if we then get a graft from early on that gives us more damage again. Now, why is Poisonous Concoction so beginner friendly? Again, the only thing you need to look out for is have 2 life flasks with the maximum amount of recovery at any given point as you're blasting through the story and get into the end game. This is me just having made a new one for this video, just a few days before the league, blasting through the leveling really quick, and as long as this is up, you're just going to do substantial damage, while you have tons of auras running that easily keep you alive. And since Poisonous Concoction and the Concoction of Bouncing are perfect to deal with packs, this is a breach league where we have to fight breach after breach after breach, you can guess that it will work plenty fine for farming those new mechanics or new updated old mechanics. It's going to be brilliant. This path of building will be linked in the description below that really takes you act by act through the whole process and has written extensive notes going over every step, while also showing you all the skills in detail. However, there are a few things I wish to point out to make everything smoother for you. Your journey begins as a ranger, and we're going to ascend into a Pathfinder, as that is absolutely brilliant for the Concoction early to end game. Your first skills will be Burning Arrow and Caustic Arrow. The Burning Arrow you only keep for the boss Brutus, because he's insanely weak against fire damage, while the Caustic Arrow allows you to clear everything up to level 12-14. That's where you're going to enter Merveil's Cave, and then Nessa gives you the Poisonous Concoction. And from the point on where you get the Poisonous Concoction, you don't have to ever care again for a weapon. You will wield a shield for bonus tankiness, focus on armor and evasion rating and bonus movement speed, and then just simply zoom through the levels. Every single zone that you enter, you have to activate Blood Rage again, but then Blood Rage will be up as long as you keep hardcore zooming and killing people. For this, we have Shield Charge and Frostblink, the double movement combo to just have you fly through the level and jump over every single gap in case there's a river or whatsoever, or you need to turn a sharp corner, because turning sharp corners with Shield Charge is kind of awkward. In the beginning, you will still have to play Mana Flask accompanying your 2 life flasks, and make sure that you always have 2 life flasks or you're going to run out of charges too quick. Around Act 5, you're then picking up Thrill of Battle, gain 2 mana per enemy hit with attacks, and 15% reduced mana cost of attacks. That also, with the increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, allows you to play all your auras and pretty much run around with a minimum of 50 to 100 mana. You don't need more because your concoction costs 14 mana that you instantly restore by throwing out multiple projectiles that then instantly restore said mana, so you have infinite of that. You could work with 20 mana total because every throw restores the mana that you pretty much spend. Super convenient. In order to run all those auras, we want the reservation here on the side, together then also with Charisma, which helps with the reservation on top. And if you really struggle with your mana, you can take here at the bottom also Leader of the Pack to work even better on that reservation. Now you're gonna say, Pony, why Pathfinder? Your first Ascension gives you Flask Effect Chaos Damage, 15% increased Chaos Damage, and Poison is Chaos Damage, right? Then 25% chance to inflict Withered for 2 seconds on hit and 50% increased Withered effect. Withered is 6% increased Chaos Damage taken, and that stacks up to 15 times. So throwing all these projectiles out with more Chaos Damage and a permanent easy chance to have Withered, that's just simply brilliant. Your second points are going to give you Flask applied to you have an increased effect and duration, so your actual Quicksilver Flask and so on. Plus, when you kill a poison enemy during any Flask effect, nearby enemies are poisoned. Okay, that's great. I just have to have them running and I spread poison. And then poison you inflict during any Flask effect has a 20% chance to deal 100% more damage. And the Flask effects, they last for 8 seconds, and for 6 seconds, and for 6 seconds, with an actual increased effect. The next 2 points are going to be for increased Flask effect duration again, and effect. Plus, we have the charges regain on all our flasks. Not just life, not just all flasks. Also the utility ones continuously just restore. Now we could spend 2 more points in this Ascension. However, there's also the Bloodline Ascendancies coming. These Bloodline Ascendancies will be earned throughout Keepers of the Flame. This is one of the new ones, and it could increase our curse effect, 25% increased chaos damage, increased herald buffs on you. My herald skills could get more buff effect per mana they reserve and more damage per mana they reserve on the minion. And we're using the Herald of Agony. Or we're going to simply have our flask that creates Consecrated Ground, make Profane Ground, and Profane Ground creates Malediction, and Profane Ground also affects you and your allies. So Malediction causes 10% reduced damage dealt and 10% increased damage taken, plus Chaotic Might that I would be getting from the Profane Ground, transforms physical damage into extra chaos damage. It would be easily possible to just spend 2 Ascendancy points for that 25% increased chaos damage, or whatever I feel like. This is only one of the many Bloodline Ascendancies. Now you see me talk about Poisonous Concoction, but what about the Poisonous Concoction of Bouncing? We get an extensive chapter in the notes on how to actually acquire the Poisonous Concoction of Bouncing. But if you're new to this, let me explain. As you're doing your laps to ascend, at the end you have the option in the font to transform a gem into a transfigured gem. And that would be your normal Poisonous Concoction into the Concoction of Bouncing, which will then, instead of just exploding on hit, bounce, and every bounce just deals massive damages. So you got like a very nasty gem going crazy. However, it's bound to RNG if you get it there or not, or if you make it far enough into the story that then at your after Act 10 lab, you're guaranteed to more or less get it. However, even if you don't get bouncing early, you can easily go through the campaign without a single holdup. Simply getting it will make it even faster and better. The good thing is, we will get asynchronous trading, so you don't have to go into the third-party website anymore. No, you can now trade in-game. You simply open up the trade panel, then search for the Concoction of Bouncing, and might be able to get it easier than ever because there are more people trading. This will be a very popular league. In Path of Exile 2, the same pretty much happened. More loot, cheaper loot, and ready availability. Regarding endgame viability and permanently breach farming, you can definitely do that with Poisonous Concoction. And we also have the endgame and further kind of items and what you're looking for in the planner. However, there's another thing I'd like to then plan or maybe even transition into. And that would be the new skill here called Conflagration. It works very simple. You shoot fire arrows from the sky, they rain down, you walk over them, and they massively explode. For this, we would then have to reset our Pathfinder ascendancies to some of the other Ranger ascendancies, but that's fine. It will work. That being said, we don't know yet about the viability of Conflagration, therefore I want to start with the Poison Concoction and probably take it to the very end. And if Conflagration turns out to actually be somewhat decent and it's scaling nice into the end game, because you never really know, then there is the option to make the swap. No worries though, we're going to take the Poisonous Concoction all the distance on top. Good thing when you're swapping, we're going to get a new refund passives where we can actually refund everything with a click of a button. And at that point, it should only cost money. Thank you, Path of Exile, for actually adding all the quality of life features. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Poisonous Concoction, something going to be for you? Path of Building is linked in the description below. Gear will be added over time. I haven't put anything in there yet, as it really comes down to the grafts and everything. And the graft option will also be added here. However, we do have already good unique items that you're looking for, right? No worries, we got you covered. Now tell me in the comments below what you're planning to play. And also, if you want to get a feeling of the leveling, here's my latest run through that I did just a few days before. We're actually going to do another speed run here on the channel. Take care.